Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast. Before we kick off our show, we would like to share what our main objective is at the MSP Corner. Our main goal is to help CEOs build profitable and self-sustainable IT service firms. We are not just providing tools for IT firms, we will be sitting in meetings with you to ensure your IT firm stays on track. The first area we are focused on, strategic sales. IT firms are stuck selling technology or IT support. We will provide you with the blueprint so you position your firm as an added value to your prospects. We will have framework on how to sell value so you influence the prospect into selecting your firm. The second area we see many IT firms struggle in is marketing. 90+% of businesses rely on antiquated marketing methods. The most popular choice, word of mouth. We have proven methods on how to attract the ideal prospect. Our framework will include how to become the online authority and be the business influencer for an industry. The third component to our package, scaling. IT firms walk away from opportunities because they lack the bandwidth or skill set to scale. We have lined up reputable businesses so our members can hire on-demand resources that will allow them to scale their business. The fourth area we will offer help in, selecting the right tools. In order to deliver value, you need the right tech stack. Our platform will offer information on products that are the ideal choice for MSPs. The fifth area we will offer help in is with documentation. Templates are a critical component when building an MSP. We will have contracts, proposals, SOWs, collateral, and much more in the template section. You will have every document you need to start up your managed IT service business. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go to our next podcast. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the MSP Corner podcast. I am your host, Fernando Leal, and I'm joined by my co-host, Gregory Moravietz. And today we have Excendio in the house, and we'll be talking to their leadership. But before we start that show up, I'm going to quickly go over our agenda. We'll make a proper introduction on Excendio and Stan Collesano, the value they offer MSPs, and then we'll discuss our owners prepared. Equity companies are searching for specific MSPs. We'll discuss that. Buyers and what's next. And then at the end, I'll share the URL for those that want to speak with Stan. So real quick, Stan's a retired attorney. He's been an attorney for over 14 years, and he's handled startups, transactional matters, litigation, including he's represented their clients and through mergers and acquisition processes. And over the past 15 years, he has merged his accounting degree and law degree to coach and consult with a multitude of companies to create long-term, highly profitable companies. And during this time, he also started and operated his own tech company. And Excendio, well, there's a little bit on Excendio. They're a trusted advisor and an IT industry specialist. They have 30 years of industry experience and a long list of highly satisfied clients. They have seen many business transformations and markets in transition, and they understand their M&A impact. They understand how to increase the value to maximize and protect MSP's interest for a smooth transaction. They provide exit strategy and M&A services without any conflict of interest. All buyer and seller interactions conducted by the partner are responsible for, they're responsible for that engagement. So senior involvement end to end. They prepare your business for the M&A transaction all the way until completion. And so they want to emphasize that they've walked in your shoes. Now, Stan, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So, we talked about your experience a minute ago. Tell us how it adds value for an MSP owner who's thinking about an exit.
Sure. Perspective, I think. Being able to look at your business from a legal point of view, financial point of view, and an entrepreneurial point of view, it's really about understanding and appreciating the health of your company, understanding the pitfalls that you will encounter and how to address them. As we have said, we've walked in your shoes, so we understand this process. I believe most companies operate on a surface level. They don't really dig deep into the layer or the roots of what's going on in their company. You have to create a strong foundation, and that's what we help you do. We help create that strong foundation. So we're taking companies that operate on a traditional belief system, which is now outdated, move you into the 21st century, transform your business. With the advent of AI, things are changing so fast. It's a race to the summit. And if you don't win that race, you're going to be left behind. So we understand MSPs, we understand how they operate, and we're going to get you to that summit quicker and faster so that you win.
Awesome. So are you only working with MSPs? How does it work with, like, say, a VAR who's interested in exiting, or do you guys work with VARs also? Is this, or are you just strictly MSPs?
No, we work with anyone, and I'm going to use the broad term tech industry. Anybody who
Okay.
has some type of tech product or service, we
Hmm.
work with.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That so what value do you see in, let's say, I have a organization that has a break fix type of IT service organization, and but they, generate seven figures a year on with this break fix model. I know it sounds impossible, but what do you say to those groups?
It depends. Well, I think what we'll do is look first and foremost going back to the health of their company. Is there something we can improve on to create more value and relevancy for their product or service? And then taking them to a point of increased margins and profits, um, setting them up so that if there is a sale or an exit, they're in the position to maximize their value.
Yep.
So we will look at it, and then we'll look at who the potential buyers are in the industry and see what we can do to effectuate a sale.
Gotcha. And do you find most MSPs or owners are they prepared for an exit or sale? What do you typically see?
No, the answer is no. They think they are,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and here's the pitfall. When you're not prepared and you're not operating your company to be sold, you're going to be taken advantage of at some point, whether it's a deal that doesn't close as fast, whether it's not maximizing your sale value, or now you're in a subservient position in negotiations because you haven't taken the time to properly prepare your company. Now,
Yep.
that doesn't mean you have to sell your company. It doesn't mean that if we prepare you to be sold, you actually have to sell. All it means is we're taking your company from good to great. We're maximizing the margins and profits. We're maximizing the value and relevancy of your product and service. Your company is operating efficiently and effectively. And I always ask this one question of all owners, especially in the tech industry. When was the last time you took a vacation without your phone?
Yep. Yep.
And the answer inevitably is, well, I can't do that. Well,
Yeah.
then we need to work on your business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It can be a stressful scenario for a lot of these guys because they haven't scaled properly. And I agree with you. They're on 24/7. So, but we get
Right.
it.
And
We go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, and which ultimately leads me to the conclusion that they're not prepared to sell.
Yep.
Uh, and
Yep.
again, if you're not prepared, you will be taken advantage of at the negotiation table.
So in today's world, we see. I don't know if this is a recent trend, but many private equity companies buying up MSPs.
So what are they looking for when they're buying a tech company? Well, a tech company in general, right? I mean, tech
Ye-
company can be AI driven or an MSP. So are
Yeah, it
you
could.
guys, yeah, you guys, are these equity firms buying all all in all industries when it comes to technology?
Yes, they are. We represent both buyers and sellers, so we understand the valuation process. But yes, it depends on the vertical that the particular private equity is in. We deal with one client that looks for tech companies in the healthcare space, automotive space, and cybersecurity space. And I asked one day, so how the heck did you get to all those three? But they do. So they look, and it could be Oracle, Microsoft resellers. It could be data transformation. Anything in the tech space, especially the way the world is moving today. If financial space, if you have financial software products or service, there are companies out there looking for those. So it really goes among all verticals. It's not just your MSPs, but it's a wide range, wide variety. Generally speaking, what private equity creates this ecosystem of companies. And when they look to purchase someone, they look at the company and they make a determination. Can we continue to grow this company organically? And can we now take their product or service and sell it within our own ecosystem to make that system even stronger and more profitable? That's one of the issues they'll look at. They'll look at what percent of your revenue is subscription based? What percent is project based? They love more subscription based than they do project based. How long have you had your clients? The majority of your revenue, does it come from a small percent of your clients, or is it spread out over all of them? So these are some of the factors that they'll look at. They'll also look at the owner. Are you working in your business or on your business? You're more valuable if you're working on it because there's strategic insight into where your business is going. A lot of private equity want you to stay on, could be 6 months, could be 5 years, but they want to know that you have put time and effort into growing this company strategically and that you're not just another employee.
Yeah, we see, because Gregory and I, we only work with MSPs, and let me tell you, that's a common denominator across a majority of MSPs we work with. The business is working them. They're not working on their business, and don't get me wrong, you're always improving as a salesman, right? You want to sell value, not tech services. You always want to improve on your marketing strategies because you want to attract your ideal client. Whether it's, you got to be doing something, not just waiting on referrals, because as you know, that well dries up fast. Unless you have some ideal partnerships, I could see MSPs having 5 to 6, maybe 7 partners. That would be ideal, and it could lead to a constant stream of referrals. But let me tell you, you've got to put a lot of time into building those partnerships, because this is a business of trust. And in order to build trust, you got to build credibility. And before you create credibility, you got to build rapport, and all that takes a lot of time, but it can be done. But we're big believers. Gregory and I have been big believers of online marketing for over 10, 15 years now. And I hate to say it, I give Gregory all the credit. He's the first one that said, "Hey, we've got to focus on Google AdWords. We got to focus on content creation." And I'm a very stubborn person, and I thought better, but I eventually came around. But online marketing, it will elevate your organization. It will take you to a whole nother level. And these guys need somebody. They need somebody that they can. They need to hear this more often, because if they are focused on being that sole support and not delegating, it's not good for them. It's just not. I don't know if you don't find them attractive enough, or what your thoughts are there. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are when you do come across an organization, and you do see the CEO doing everything, but he's built a 7-figure MSP. But you look at him and you go, gosh, what are the negatives behind that, where you're like, okay, you're working the business, or the business is working you. You're not really working on your business. But he's got commitments of organizations that generate 7 figures for him every year. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'll go back to the question that you asked earlier. Are you prepared to exit or sell? And if
Yeah,
you're in that position, then no, you're not. That is a red flag for me. That tells me you are not ready to sell.
interesting.
And it's a great point. Ultimately, it decreases the value of your business. I think many times it's overestimated what we believe our business to be because it's so personal to us. And we want to, and you say, well, I've worked so hard in this business to do all of these things, and I should get a lot of money for it when I exit. But if you're working in the business, you're nothing more than an overpaid employee. And nobody is creating this long-term sustainable company. I ask, what's your goal when you started this business? What is your overriding goal? And if you're not working towards that, and in order to do that, you need to strategically plan your business. That takes time and effort. When you are in the weeds and you're not out strategizing your company, the value of you decreases. Private equity looks at that and says, I need to now replace this employee. That costs money, and you're not strategically looking at it. Therefore, your value is decreased. I may not even need you now. I'm going to buy you out completely for a lower value because initially my profit is going to be minimal because I have to recoup that cost now. So if you're not looking at it from a strategic point of view, which again, I'll go back to the perspective that we bring from the legal, the financial, the entrepreneurial perspective, then you're missing the boat. You're not prepared. You're not going to get to the summit first, and you're going to be left behind, and ultimately your value is going to be driven down.
So,
Go ahead, Greg. I don't want to monopolize the entire conversation, so go ahead.
so when we were doing M&As early on, when we had a lot of cash and things were doing, things were bumping and popping, what I noticed was that the companies we were approaching, and then when people were approaching to buy us, there was like almost like a checklist of things we should have done to get ready. Like one of the companies we were looking to buy, all their contracts were verbal, right? They just said, okay, we'll service you, shake a hand and walk away. And our lawyers and our attorneys and our mergers and acquisition people said, that's not good. That's not
Right.
a good asset. That's not an asset. I mean, they were like saying that those were almost worthless, the ones that had no contracts on them.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I absolutely agree with that. They are worthless because it gets so tied into the owner, the handshake. Great, I'm going to do business with you and not necessarily your company. So when you are gone, there's nothing to tie that person back into the business as a client. So they could up and leave. So those contracts are pretty much, those verbal agreements really are pretty much worthless because there's no security for the buyer. There's no security in knowing they're tied into a 3-year, 5-year, 1-year, whatever it is, contract. So I know I can generate revenue from that particular client because they're locked in. On a verbal handshake, they can walk away tomorrow. And if I paid you 50,000 per client and that client walks away, I'm out 50,000.
Exactly. So just, your firm or your strategy in that, with that all being true, is your strategy along, because that you're going to, if you came to me and I had that problem and you said to me, look, you want to sell your business, but guess what? All of those verbals are useless to us. We have to have written contracts. I then have to go one at a time and finagle out a contract with them. Maybe some of them will, maybe some of them won't, but it's not going to take one day. It's going to take maybe months. Do you just give somebody a push in the right direction, or do you sit there and wait with them and go, what's the update, or how do you deal with, like, that's a long, time for a sale to occur for you, right? Where do you care about those people, or do you just go like, I'm looking for people who are ready, or are you like, I'll help you along for 6 months until we can get you to a point where you're in good shape, right?
Yeah, so we'll do an initial evaluation. I'll evaluate the company initially, and both, quite honestly, is the answer to your question. If you are ready to sell and everything looks good and we can maximize value, that process in and of itself is 9 months to a year from the time you say we're going to sell until we actually close on a deal. So it's a time consuming process in and of itself. If we look at you and you're not ready, I will work with you if you want. It takes a different form on the pricing aspect compared to just the sale. But if it takes 3 months, 6 months, a year, I am happy to work with those companies and put you in the position to maximize value. But you're right. It's not just one day. It's not just here's a checklist of 10 things, go and do it. I would tell you if you haven't done it already, you need help. And that's why I'm here. So I will take you through that exit process. There's a great line. My kids are a little older now, but in the movie Shrek, the donkey asks Shrek, and Shrek says, "Well, I'm complicated. I'm like an onion," and that's how I look at a business. We have to peel through the layers of everything to get to the root of it. So that's what I will do. I will peel every layer of your company. We'll restructure it. We'll transform it. We'll give it a better foundation and structure so that you are in that transformative state. And now you will be ready to be sold.
Great, because I mean, just the bookkeeping, how they're doing their bookkeeping is like, you're looking at it and you're trying to gain information from it, as like, from your perspective of a merger or buying or whatever. They don't have that perspective, right? They didn't set their books up to be like accommodating to you. It's accommodating to them. They may,
Right.
be running their personal credit card through it, and buying their kids dental work through it, and you're like, well, this isn't part of your business, and they don't care. They're like, well, that's how we do it. And you're going to be like, well, that's got to get removed in some way, you know what I mean? And how are
Right.
you
Exactly.
removing that and all that stuff?
So we'll dig deep. We'll dig deep into the financials. We'll see where the revenue's coming in and the expenses, what's going out, because it all affects the value of the company. So having the accounting background, I can get into the financials, look at your P&L, and we'll break them apart. We'll really look at it. We'll redesign them. At the end of the day, private equity has certain floor limits for your EBITDA, and if you're below that, you may be too small. So they want you above a certain level. And in order to do that, we have to structure the company financially, operationally, so that it's achieving efficiency and maximizing those margins and profits. It's interesting too. I don't think many companies or people look at it. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, when I was practicing law, I had three companies that their bookkeeper was embezzling money. And it's just because they weren't paying attention. And that are some of the things that we'll look for. Are you paying attention to those financials? Are they structured in a way where there are checks and balances in place so that we understand the true value of this business?
Yeah, my wife's one of my wife's customers, their bookkeeper was embezzling money from them for like 15 years, and they just didn't know. I mean, because they didn't understand the way that the expenses and the reports were written out. She was giving herself an extra paycheck every month, and just you just don't see it. If there's 25, 30, 40 people in your company, you just don't have the time to sit there and look at every single transaction in your books. So yeah.
Yeah, and you should. And it goes back to, are you working in your business or on your business? Are you reviewing those monthly statements? I do. I look at them. I will put them under a magnifying glass and really look and see where the revenue's coming from and where it's going. And just as a quick side note, a number of years ago, I always hear people say, we've heard in anything, well, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Um, a number of years ago, there were nuns in a Catholic church that embezzled money from the church, and they spent it on gambling. So if you don't think it's going to happen to you, I would tell you it happened to the nuns at the church. So
Yeah, I agree. There's no way that you can make sure that you're complete. All right,
yep.
those are my questions, Fernando.
All right. No, well, thanks for chipping in there. I got I got two more questions here for Stan. Stan, when it comes to exiting or selling your company, I have to assume it's a very time consuming process. I'm assuming you have more buyers than sellers, or do you have more sellers than buyers? And where do you find buyers?
Yeah, so great question. Right now, there are more buyers than there are sellers. It is starting to pick up. We are in a transition time. I think over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see a lot of baby boomers exit uh, the workforce and sell their companies. Um, we're seeing more and more M&A activity now as we get into 2025. I would say the second half of 2024, things started to pick up again. So there are a lot of buyers in the tech industry. I think we're going to see more sellers coming soon because of the baby boomers reaching the age of retirement. What that ultimately does is right now, multiples on your business are going up. In 4 to 5 years, if you try to sell, I think it's going to become a buyer's market. So the multiples will probably come down some. I think economic times, and it doesn't matter your political affiliation at this point, but I think over the next few years, the economy is going to get stronger. So we will see that process of more activity. But if you're not preparing for it now, again, you're going to be in a position to be taken advantage of later because it's going to be a buyer's market. But right now, we do see more buyers than we see sellers. To your question, where do we find the buyers? Excendio has been in the business for 30 years. We know all of the players, we know them well, and we know who's looking for what. Now, since we represent both buyers and sellers, depending on a transaction, never both at the same time, we do have relationships with a number of private equity firms that ask us to look for a specific type of company. So over the years, we just developed relationships with many, many people in those companies. So we understand the market, we understand who's out there. It is a time consuming process, as we talked about a few minutes ago. I'd love to do a transaction in 6 months, just doesn't happen. You're looking at 9 months to a year uh, on the process of actually selling. But, because of what we do, we act as a buffer between them and we can help that process move along quickly. We can help lower your costs ultimately. We don't replace your legal, tax, or accounting professionals, but our approach, our strategic approach, helps you get through that process so that if we do represent a seller, knowing the buyers, we can go out and competitively attract the right buyer to maximize your value.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I had one last question here. It says to tell me about the next. I have next in quotation marks here.
Yeah, great question, right?
Yep.
When you own a business and you're ready to sell, what's next?
Mhm.
We unfortunately see deals fall apart at the last minute because the owners get cold feet because they don't know what's next. They don't know, well, what am I going to do now that I'm selling my business? Which, again, I've owned businesses. They become like children to you, right? And you don't just want to see them go and walk away. So, through our partners, we help the owner, the founder, determine what's next. We will help you in that process as to whether do you want to go and start another company? You already created one successful company. Do you want to start a second one? Do you want to get into consulting? Or do you simply just want to ride off into the sunset? But we can help with that process. Again, I'm assuming when you started this business, you had a goal in mind. And I don't particularly care what it is. Maybe it's you wanted to buy a boat, put your kids through college, retire, whatever it is. Did you achieve that goal? And now what's next in your life? We're about moving you to that ultimate goal, moving you into a position of now you have accomplished something. We've maximized the value and sold it. And we'll help you in that process if you want what's next for you. Now, the other interesting thing is too, we do it for your employees as well. Many people are concerned about their employees and they'll say, well, we'll give you a resume writer. We don't do that with the next part. Sometimes there's overlapping titles and positions when private equity buys you. So if they're going to let people go, we will help them in that process, move on with their career, get them to a position of more than just a resume, but let's target these particular industries because you're a good fit for that.
I like that. Yeah, because I agree. It's like, what do you do next after? Some people have it figured out. Somebody who's really organized would probably have it figured out. But some of these guys, they might need help with that. And the unknown, it's sometimes scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we all want to be productive human beings for as long as we possibly can. And when you sell your business, sometimes you're kind of, I don't know what to do now. And that can blow up a deal, but we'll help you in that process.
I like that. That's great. Well, Greg, that's a wrap for me. Unless you have something else you wanted to share, or
no,
do you have any, no, you're good.
Very educational.
Yeah.
Is there a checklist, something you might have that could get somebody, like maybe a questionnaire that you have that could get somebody in the headspace where they would think about moving forward with contacting you, like do you shower? Do you cut, do you trim your hair? Do you dress nice? I mean, that'd be the things I would want to know people are looking for at the bar before I even show up, right? Because they'd be like, oh man, you're a mess. I'm like, well, sorry. Nobody told me.
That's right. Why am I the only one wearing shorts and everyone has a tuxedo on?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I do. I have a couple of them. I have
Awesome.
a health checklist that I can run through for your business just to see if you're operating efficiently, effectively. I have a checklist to determine whether you're ready to be sold. Here are some of the things that they look at. Yep. I can, yes.
No, that'd be great.
Hold on, let's pump the brakes there. Stan, I'm gonna work with you on that to build up the audience for the webinar, because I think you have a lot of value to offer here. And during the webinar sign up, I want to offer that as a sign up for the webinar, but here's a list for you. And we can talk about that offline. But let me just wrap this up with your URL. So anybody who wants to reach out to Stan, you can go to www.excendio.com, and that's E as in Edward, X as in X-ray, C as in Charlie, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, D as in David, I as in Igloo, O as in Orange.com. And he has another website at www.siconsultingfirm.com, and reach out to Stan directly if you'd like. But
yeah,
Stan,
that's Fernando, correct. It's SL as in L.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yep. I thought you were going Sports Illustrated consulting firm there, but okay. SL. All right. slconsultingfirm.com. Awesome. Stan, it's been enlightening, and what a pleasure meeting you and having you on our podcast. So thanks again for joining us today. So let me just sign off, and then we'll let me wrap up our conversation offline. Let me just wrap this up. So to everybody, thanks for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on the MSP Corner site. Go to www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with the CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with the CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. Have an awesome day.